Hey guys, and welcome to the Surge Growth Partner Podcast, a podcast where we interview top level executives inside leading and growing companies in the IT and cybersecurity space. Excited to have our guest today, Mark Tishenko. We'll be diving into his story, what his company, Edge Network, specializes in, and some engaging insights into the cybersecurity industry. So I'll go ahead and kick it off to you, Mark. If you could just introduce yourself, tell a quick snippet of your story and your background prior to founding Edge Networks.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark Tishenko, founder and CEO of Edge Networks. I got into IT early on, and the first IT gig that I had was a friend of mine asked if I could migrate Windows 2000 to Windows 2003. I had no idea what I was doing, but I still took the job. And today we do a ton of IT. So.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always kind of interesting to me to kind of see how people got into the scene and what exactly, sparked their initial interest or how they went to go and create a whole career around it. So what was it? Was there a moment kind of like in your childhood or something growing up? I know you just talked about like kind of that incident, but was there something that you always kind of knew that you wanted to pursue, a tech career or to start a tech company? Or IT company? Was that something you always knew?
I think so. I can't really remember that far back. Getting pretty old here, but I remember though when growing up in an immigrant family, very poor, couldn't really afford didn't know what a computer is. I had an idea that there's these things out there, but around 8 or 9, there was a garage sale next to our house, and I was there, and there was a computer, a Commodore. I was like, what is this thing? This thing is fascinating. So I talked my parents into getting it for me. It didn't really work very well. It wasn't much. They had cartridges for applications. Anyways, long story short, a few years later, my parents decided to invest into a computer for me. Well, the moment we brought it back home, I took it apart, trying to figure out what was inside, and broke it. So my mom was like, okay, frustrated. This was a huge expense for them. Takes me back to Montgomery Ward, which was a large department store back in the early 90s. And the technician there is like, hey, do you want to stay with me while I fix the computer? And I did. My mom let me. And watching him repair this computer, I was fascinated. I was asking a ton of questions. Why? So anyways, we didn't have to go back to get it repaired for about 6 months because I was able to repair certain things myself.
Mm-hmm.
This was Windows 3.1 timeframe. It constantly broke. I had to figure things out. Fast forward a little bit to Windows 95, 98, 95. I really wanted to play video games with my next door neighbors. And instead of them hauling their computers to my house or me to theirs, we decided to run coax cable between our houses and create a network. That was really fun. Then we layered ISDN network internet on it. I was charging them $20 a month to provide internet services that was incrementally better than dial-up, but it was always connected, and we wouldn't take our parents' phone service to get to the internet. Long story short, my mom discovered it and did not like it, so she had me shut down that operation. So.
That's a cool story, man. I always love hearing kind of how people get into something and how, usually what I've kind of noticed is it's something around the childhood moment where you kind of had this, initial passion, this initial interest to kind of like for yourself. I'm sure when you first were kind of watching someone put together a computer, it's just so fascinating at such a young age. You're like, man, that's just, you start to realize like that's kind of something that's just so cool. And it's always awesome to kind of hear people's initial start into why they went and decided to dedicate their whole life to something. So that's amazing. But I did kind of want to now ask you, obviously you've probably been inside the industry for quite a while, and you've seen the evolution of IT kind of when it started, when probably it wasn't even called cybersecurity back then; it was called information security, right? And they recently turned it into cybersecurity. So you've kind of seen this whole evolution of it itself, and I'm curious as to, you know, what types of trends that you're currently seeing that you think are going to be really impactful to both the IT. We'll just leave it to the cybersecurity part, but where do you think what type of trends are really going to be impactful in terms of cybersecurity within the coming years to months?
So what we have been seeing a lot lately is operational technology security, which is highly unmanaged at the moment. A lot of companies don't take it too seriously. They think that it's, you know, PLC devices and all of the manufacturing facilities, that they're not really taking security seriously on their OT. And there's a slight distinction between OT and IT. IT is something that you run in the office for information, and OT is for operations where they produce products. Um, those networks historically have been air gapped and just under managed. So that's a huge opportunity that we see in the market right now, especially in the energy space and manufacturing space.
Definitely interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard someone actually bring that up before, so that's definitely some unique insights. I think people always kind of touch around the buzzword of artificial intelligence, which, you know, obviously like is a big buzzword, and it's true, the impact of it. But I haven't heard someone talk about that, so that's great. And I'm kind of curious. That's probably like the perfect segue into kind of going and asking you what you guys are kind of doing over there at Edge Networks, and maybe if you can educate the audience on kind of what your primary service offering is at Edge Networks.
Yeah. So for us, we start with the strategy in mind. Where is the customer currently from a cybersecurity posture perspective? And then how are we going to get to the next level? Cybersecurity is an ever evolving space that you'll never be truly secure. And I always tell customers, and maybe I'm offending them to a certain extent, but you'll never be secure. There will be a time where we are all going to get compromised. It's how are we going to react and respond to that compromise? Because the bad guys are always working. Every time somebody creates a new lock to make a facility more secure, there's always somebody trying to break it. So it's a never-ending fight that I don't think is going to go away. It will get better with technology companies being more conscious with secure code and making it more difficult. But ultimately, I don't think it's going to go away. So from a market perspective, we're really there's two segments that they're polar opposites, but one is, I'd say almost 50% of our business is financial services and fintech. So software, financial space like credit unions and such. The other half is a mix between professional services and manufacturing. We have a sprinkle of energy services companies, renewable energy and such. But where we're headed in 2024 is focusing on vulnerability management, strategy and leadership, and then monitoring to wrap it all together with a nice pink bow.
Got it. Yeah, no, then that's, you know, you touched on a lot of good points, and I'm curious as to ask you kind of as a follow up, you know, you guys obviously do a couple of different things, but what would you say when a client kind of starts to kind of work with you guys, where do they get the most value from, and where do you think that that component is within your service offering?
The most value that they could tie to ROI is really that governance and risk management. So the GRC component of our service offering, governance, risk, and compliance, that's where we believe the most value is, because then you could correlate the activities of security and IT to your bottom line via risk and your total budget and spend. So understanding where your risk lies will give you the ability to understand where you need to go in the next 6, 12, 18 months.
Got it. Understood. And so I'm curious as to ask you, also, being inside like the kind of financial sector, we'll kind of just talk about that. Um, what types of challenges are most of your clients usually coming to you with? Like, what are they usually experiencing, and kind of how do you help them overcome those?
Right now, there's quite a few, but the one I'm going to focus on is really there's so many different compliance frameworks that everyone's pushing. There's CIS, there's NIST, there's other entities that do compliance or provide compliance frameworks. One that we're focusing on and that we see a lot of financial services companies really bringing in is NIST CSF. And it's a fairly simple framework that allows you for a pretty wide range of organizations to adapt. So that the challenge that they run into is all of these frameworks are based on Excel sheets, screenshots, and really combining all this data to articulate what the current status of the security posture that the company has. What we found was building a platform that allows customers to not only visually represent all of this data from Excel sheets and screenshots in a nice format, but also as they level up and improve their cybersecurity posture, see what other things come out of it. So the challenge, Excel sheets, how do we get rid of Excel sheets is the big push for us.
Got it. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think it's important to kind of have that partner with that experience to be able to guide them through those processes, right? Because it's definitely tricky, right? There's so many different, the compliance, the different industries and the different compliance regulations you have to kind of hear by can definitely get confusing. And for
Yeah.
for most IT professionals or leaders, it requires kind of that third party service to kind of come in, or third party trusted advisor that can, not only give you the security aspect of things, but also say, hey, we're going to help make sure that you don't ever have to worry about any fines. You never have to worry about it being, non-compliant. So I think that's definitely an important aspect to cybersecurity.
Yeah. One of our security analysts shared a story a couple of years ago. He was working with the CEO of a company to get them CMMC compliant. And the CEO's like, so how is this going to make me more secure? Am I going to take the stack of Excel sheets? At the time, we were still using Excel sheets. He's like, am I going to take the stack, put it in front of my firewall, and it's going to make me more secure? I thought that was pretty funny to think of compliance that way. That how is it actually going to make us more secure? So really thinking about how you operate and then using those learnings to mitigate risk.
Definitely. Yeah. No, 100%, 100%. And that's important. And I think kind of the next topic that I kind of wanted to move to, just because, I'm always fascinated by the stories of founders, right? And kind of how people kickstarted their entrepreneurial journey. And I kind of wanted to ask you, what do you think, right, is the most, or in your opinion, obviously, because everyone's probably got different opinions towards this, but what do you think is the most important mindset kind of to have if you are going to start a business and you are going to become a CEO, try to have a successful company? What type of mindset do you think you need for that?
Flexibility. Sorry, flexibility. If we, when you start a company, you have this idea and vision of where you want to go, but life just does not give it to you right off the bat. It makes you work for it. You really have to work hard to get to that vision. Sometimes you have to jump through a lot of hoops. I started the company wanting to provide cybersecurity services in 2006. Well, nobody really cared for cybersecurity services at the time. So I had to do Wi-Fi engineering, large-scale fiber networks for universities and large organizations. Nothing what I wanted to do originally. One of the stories that I share with my team often is, we have this client, a very big client, one of our, generates 7 or 8% of our revenue. But they're a big client and they've been around for a very long time. However, one thing that nobody really knows is when I got them initially in the beginning, they paid me $500.62. So $562 a month. I worked 100 hours a month for them for like a year, $5 an hour. And today they're worth millions to us. However, back then it was $562.50 was the exact invoice amount. So I don't know if this is a PG podcast, but you could cut this. I had to eat shit. I had to eat shit for a very long time before it turned into something. And then the CFO realized that, hey, Mark, you're here all the time. I know we don't pay you enough. We need to pay you more. So I was like, yes, please pay me more. And that's really what got me on that trajectory of fixed fee, no BS, no hourly costs, was that experience with that customer. And this customer, they left, built their own IT team, outsourced to other companies, and eventually came back to us a couple of years ago. And they're like, you know what? We love what you guys do, and we want to continue this partnership. So,
yeah, no,
but,
yeah, no, that's an amazing story. I love to kind of hear those humble beginnings where kind of everything started, and when you have that vision in the beginning, you're trying to just put the necessary frameworks to kind of get to where you want to be. It requires so much of that hard work, right? And I think a lot of people maybe I think as a founder, whenever I meet another founder or someone that could start a business, I'm like, okay, so you're as crazy as I am. You kind of, there's something not right with you either. Okay, so we're both we're both going to work as much as we can to make whatever we have to succeed, right? And that's usually what it takes is, just that relentlessness. And I think putting in that amount of hours, and it goes to show that it does pay back, right? And I think I'm a big component of doing goodwill onto others, because they're going to remember, and they're going to want to come back to you at some point, even if it's not there, but at some point they're going to want to come back. So I think it's a great point.
One of our things, and to draw that point a little bit further, is when you're offboarding a customer, that's one of the most important times to build a strong, lasting relationship with a customer. We see, we offboard from other companies, and sometimes we see very haphazard approach to offboarding. Offboarding should be the number one concern. When a customer's leaving, you give them everything. You don't try to sell them and keep them, but you give them everything. You provide the best service, because that's what they'll remember, that last interaction. It should be like that throughout the whole relationship, but offboarding should be critical, because 2 years later, customers come back. Most of our customers, we have a positive, most of our customers eventually come back. Mm-hmm. Especially the bigger ones, they go try out different companies based on price, and then they eventually come back and say, you know what, we're willing to pay the higher price to be with you guys.
Yeah. And then that's super important to kind of understand, is also kind of like to guard your price, right? It's like, hey, like this is our price for the reason, because like take a look around. Just because it's cheaper does not mean it's better. And I feel like as business owners, we all kind of maybe sometimes try to take the cheaper route, and then we also realize like, well, just because it's cheaper doesn't mean it's better, right? Yeah. And so,
no, cheaper never wins. You have to do it at scale, and in order to do that at scale, you have to employ a lot of technology, something that MSPs and MSSPs don't currently have. Today, to support a single individual at a company, it costs $188 per month to support from an IT and security perspective. And that's not even including any outsourced services that you need. And a lot of MSPs I see charging $75 per employee to support them. You can't provide quality service. You can't sustain your business by undercharging. You're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing a customer a disservice. I don't know how you're going to provide good health benefits. How are you going to provide a quality work-life balance for your team if you're charging $75 per person?
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
it's a great.
very, very important to really dive into the costs of what it takes to support a customer, and then really articulate that to the customer. What what value are they going to get out of it? How is it going to affect their bottom line? Not in a negative sense that they're going to be paying you, significantly more. But how are how's productivity going to improve?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's a phenomenal point. I think a lot of companies have to kind of take that into mind. And one thing that I've always just preached is that people will pay for expensive things as long as you can deliver the value of those things, right? And you have the proper value proposition that's kind of attached to your services.
Yep.
Um, I did want to ask you a question regarding, we talked about kind of the mindset and kind of what's needed to kind of build off, a company. But I kind of wanted to ask you in current day, what are some of the challenges that you're now facing as a CEO inside your company?
Right now, some of the challenges are in financial management. That's it could become when I started the company, me and two other guys, I'm like, hey, the objective is to get to 25,000 MRR. How do we get there? Once we get to 25,000 MRR, we're going to be golden. We're going to cover our salaries, and you know
Hmm.
everything's going to be butterflies.
Yeah.
Well, quickly we realized, oh wait, what happened to the 25,000? We're at 100,000 now, and we totally forgot to celebrate that 25,000.
Yeah.
It just flew by, and then it keeps your goalpost keeps moving, and as it keeps moving, you think you're always searching for, oh, it's going to get easier. I'm going to hire this person. They're going to augment this challenge that you have. Today for us is what I'm really focusing on is really financial maturity from a business finance perspective, because we got to very healthy revenues, healthy profits, but digging into the numbers and really understanding the economics behind how are we supporting the customer, how much is it costing us, are we overstaffed, are we understaffed, having those metrics in place to really understand when to hire, when to expand your team, expand your services, bring in consultants, all of those things. It's a full-time job. It's not something that a single person can handle by multitasking between other
Yeah.
departments at this point. So that's a challenge for me. I am going to be hiring a CFO soon. So
Yeah. No, that it's always you, at least when for me, because I'm still obviously in the beginning stages of things, and I only have about 4 employees right now, so I'm not at the point where I'm able to hire a CFO. But I could definitely see at some point when you start to manage more and more and more, you get to the point where this is like you said, like I can no longer handle this, and I think that's the
yeah,
biggest thing as a CEO. It's like you try to do everything right, you try to have a hand on everything, but then you start to realize like I don't have the capacity
yeah,
to handle everything. Like this requires, and like something like financials are you know the bloodline of business. You need those, right? So it's like you
yeah,
need to have someone that's in the place to properly analyze things and put those things and make sure spending is on right components, right? So definitely see that being a challenge. I'm curious as to maybe the sales and marketing sides of things. What have you guys done to grow your business? What have you guys done that you've seen really you've had a lot of success with? And then maybe if you talk to a little bit, what are the things that you're trying to do right now towards that?
yeah. To date, it was mostly inbound marketing. We leveraged a lot of paid media, earned media over the last 5 or 6 years. So most of our growth to date has been via inbound. It's been really good to us. Um, we didn't really have sales reps. We kind of managed the sales cycle between IT people and whoever was available to sell the deal. This year, we've invested a lot into our sales and marketing operations team. So now we've grown our marketing team. We have dedicated account executives. So one of the things that we see from a challenge perspective is how do we build more meaningful relationships, not just transactional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
because what happens is oftentimes we get carried away with getting a lot of leads, talking to them, closing some, but the relationship's not there. And they end up churning within, 12 to 18 months. We don't
Yeah.
want that. We want those customers that are long term, and that costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
I've we have a customer that I hope he's not going to be listening to this. Uh, he needed some help, but he wasn't sure about who to hire. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to fly out there. So I flew out there. We went to dinner. We spent a ton of money on dinner and nice wine. Eventually, we closed the deal. And that relationship, though, every time we put in a foundation for a good relationship first, um, and the business went after. So I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
actually selling him during that. I, for me, it was an intention, but I wasn't selling him. It was more, hey, let's get to know you, and that has proved to be very profitable for the company. The couple $1,000s that I spent to meet him was well worth it. That's one thing that we track is how much does it actually cost for us to acquire a customer,
Mm-hmm.
and our marketing team does a really good job keeping tabs and making sure that we track everything, the ROI per lead. So every dollar that we invest into sales and marketing, we know that we're going to get $3 or $4.
Yeah. No, that's a phenomenal point. I think so many people forget that relationships are like the fundamental parts of of what makes a client relation or what makes your business successful, right? Because at the end of the day, obviously everyone wants money, everyone wants everything's transactional, you need money, but at the end of the day, people buy from people and they stay with you because they like you, right? And they stay with you because they can value that relationship with you. And it's so what I found to be the most success what I found the most success with is obviously excuse me. What I found the most success with has always been to leverage those personal relationships, right? And to spend time on those because spending time on those relationships is what's going to make that relationship last longer. It's going to make you more money at the end of the day, and it's going to help you having to avoid to get to spend more marketing money on acquiring new customers.
Yeah.
And that's how important it is to kind of nurture those relationships and to also be like a partner, right? It's like, hey, like we want the best for you guys. Like we want you guys to grow, and we want to make sure that we're able to provide the best service for you. And when you approach business like that, I think that it makes everything else easier, right? It's not just so, hey, you pay me this money. I'm just a service provider. I just provide you this service, and that's it,
Yeah.
right? I think a lot of people get caught in that. It's like, no, go a level deeper, right? Like actually become their partner, understand their business, try to figure out exactly what they're trying to do, and that's how you maintain that relationship. That's how you build those strong relationships. So, great point, and I think that's a lot of people need to take that into consideration.
There's a really good book called Go Giver that was introduced to me by, at the time, I think it was HTG Peer Groups. Now it's called Connect Wise Evolve. But
Hmm.
the book is called Go Giver. Fantastic about, give before you get. Um, and it's a required reading around the office.
I'll definitely have to look into that. Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that. I did want to ask you kind of what you guys were building for the next, everyone kind of likes his 5-10 year plans. I don't want to talk about 5-10 year. We'll talk about just the next 12 months. What type of vision do you guys have for your company right now? What are you what are you really building towards right now?
Yeah, so right now we're really focusing on financial services. So fintech, a little bit of software, but mostly fintech. And my vision is within the next 12 to 18 months is to have um, a local presence in Chicago, New York, Dallas, and Mexico City.
Hmm.
So those are our markets, and we building out. It's challenging because you have to put people there, finding the right talent that understands the market, both are what we do and who we're targeting. Who are we going to help? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to sell something that's going to become shelfware. We want something that we could tie to ROI. And that's really, we work very hard to tie everything we do to ROI, which is very hard because
Mm.
IT and security is a cost center oftentimes.
Yeah.
But when you
Well,
get that right client, they know how to tie it to ROI. They
well,
help
yeah.
us to understand it.
No, 100%. And it's always hard to kind of position it, but I think there is like there's big ROI in security, right? Because you're the chances of, like you said, it's not a matter of time. I think you said earlier, it's not a matter of time. It's not if you get hit, it's just a matter of time,
Yeah,
right? Because what we're seeing now, especially with artificial intelligence, people are able to send these sophisticated attackers at length. So you
yeah,
have to be protected because you will get at some point uh, infiltrated, right? And so if you don't have the right defenses up and you go through a breach that not only costs you, money to pay off ransomware attacks or whatever it may be to even sustain the attackers, then you're going to have to pay for the reputational damage, or then
yeah,
you're going to have to pay for also the damage that maybe you have existing partners who don't want to work with you anymore because of it, right? So there's a lot of different. It's a very multi-layered equation when you are talking about security and ROI, but you need it, right? And I'm always what I'm seeing is that people tend to prioritize cybersecurity after an event has occurred, right? And that's
yeah.
the worst time. It's like after your house gets broken into and they steal everything, then you want to put the alarm system, and it's like, come on, guys. So
Yeah, we get quite a few of those. We tend to refer them out somewhere.
yeah,
It just not when a customer doesn't or a company doesn't prioritize security, it's not part of their operational maturity. It becomes a challenging topic. It's always contentious. Every quarter when you have to do a business strategy alignment with the customer, like, but why do we need it? Then they start cutting costs, and that's where it becomes a problem.
definitely. Well, cool, man. It's been awesome kind of getting to hear your story and exactly what you guys are doing. I'm definitely excited for you guys. I did have one more question that I wanted to leave the audience. You've been obviously dropping a lot of hidden gems throughout this, but if you had to maybe package it all into this is a loaded question, so just be prepared. But if you had to package some of the advice that maybe you've learned throughout the year and working, what would you say are the most important things that you've learned in your career that you think that you'd want the audience to know?
As an entrepreneur or as a cybersecurity executive?
Well, I always like to say we'll say as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Maybe both. We'll do both. We'll do both.
I think flexibility and gratitude are key. A lot of mental health issues that I've taught myself where as you're building a company, it's very lonely. Nobody really understands you. Um, Nobody to talk to. You can't be open and honest with everybody. And if you are, it's judgmental at times. So you become scared and you kind of you guard yourself from sharing
Mhm.
your pains and struggles. But gratitude has been very very helpful to me personally. Whenever I go through a harder time, and every quarter there's something. If it's not one thing, there's another thing.
Yeah.
And it just as you grow, the scale of those problems grows with you. So being able to stop, contemplate on what's happening, and give thanks for the opportunity that you have to deal with this challenging time. You know, there was a time where we lost 80% of our business and, well, COVID
Yeah.
uh, during that time. And it was challenging. I didn't know how we're going to recover from that. That year has been, and I'm attributing this to being grateful to be alive, with all the chaos. That year has been the most profitable year we've had, even though right when COVID hit, all hell let loose in the company. But it was one of the best years we've had. I could have just packed up and closed shop, but being grateful to the team that was around me. So, anyways, I think gratitude and being able to be flexible is very important when you are. And I'm not perfect. I still have a lot of, you know, painful time, but for the most part, flexibility and gratitude, I think, are very important.
Yeah, that is amazing advice, man. Like I think I mean, it resonates home with anyone who is building business, and I think that you often, will take a lot in, right, a lot of inwards, and you don't want to share because it's like, what, I have to deal with this, my problem, I have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
But I think once you take a step back from that, and this is what I do, kind of to calm myself down, not have anxiety, is just say, hey, like I'm grateful that I have these problems, right? Because I look at the world, you look around the world's is a crazy place, right? And you're like, I'm grateful for the problems I had because I know there's someone out there within a snap of a finger. If they could take on my problems, they would do it.
Yeah.
So, like, to have that gratitude, it makes business so much easier, it makes life so much easier because you start to realize that, like, hey, I got it easy. Like, okay, so what, I have to work, and do this and I have to deal with this. But compared to somebody else or compared to most people, like, my life's pretty good. Like, I can't complain. So
Yeah.
I
Even
think
even yeah, even on the days that you don't get paid, because founders get paid last.
yeah,
Usually a few months after everybody else gets paid. That's how founders get paid. Being able to be grateful for the opportunity. Yeah. I think my and you could, you know, ignore this, but I think the world would be a better place if more people would be grateful for where they're at in life, whether it be good or bad. Uh, Looking at what social media and what people kind of put out there and not being grateful for the turmoil and chaos that you have personally causes people to get into, you know, give up on dreams, not,
yeah,
not fulfill what they're destined to do. And each individual, each human has a destiny, and it's a good destiny. We just need to slow down and think
definitely.
about it.
No, I couldn't agree more, man. I'm on the same type of mindset, or the way that I look at everything in life is just that, there's always, and like to your point when you said that when you lost all your business, I usually think that the worst days of your life usually happen to be the best days of your life. For whatever reason, there's something in the universe that I think that you can find a blessing through any type of event that happens to you, right? Because like if one thing or another teaches you something, right, that you can then go
Exactly.
in to take and to learn that lesson is super valuable. And so I think that sometimes people often like, oh, I don't know how I would handle that. I don't know what I would do. Well, it's like, well, you'd end up handling it. You'd figure it out, right? And you'd learn from it. That's how I think about it. Like, even if everything goes to nothing, even if all of this falls down, I'll at least have learned something and I'll be able to start up and do it again way quicker than I did the time
Yeah.
before. So it's like, there's always a positive that you can kind of take out of as cliche as it sounds, right? But there is a positive that you can take out of every negative situation. So that is true. That is true.
Negative situations are like working out when you rip your muscles just to get a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
you need to tear muscle in order for it
yeah,
to grow.
yeah.
But hey, man, it's been a pleasure. You've been dropping a whole bunch of nuggets throughout this whole video, so we definitely appreciate you for coming on. I did want you to maybe tell the audience where they can find you and where the best place to contact you is. If you can drop those, if you can just tell me right now, and I'll drop those in the description.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. People can connect with me, chat with me. I'm all over the place. So if I'm in town, I don't mind grabbing a cup of coffee or happy hour. So reach
Cool.
out on LinkedIn and see what happens.
Great, great.
Yeah,
Well, I'll include your LinkedIn. Also include your company website as well, just so if they want to reach out via that, they can
yeah,
as well. But hey, man,
fantastic.
thanks again,
Alrighty.
Mark, for coming on. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. If you did stay all the way to the end, all we do ask is for a comment, a like, and subscribe, and we will come back with more related content like this. So we hope you guys have a great rest of your day and take care. Ciao.